Subhuti was one of Buddha's disciples. He was able to understand the potency of emptiness, the viewpoint that nothing exists except in its relationship of subjectivity and objectivity. One day, Subhuti was sitting under a tree. Flowers began to fall around him. We are praising you for your discourse on emptiness. The gods whispered at him, but I have not spoken of emptiness, said Subhuti. You have not spoken of emptiness, we have not heard of emptiness, responded the gods. This is true emptiness, and blossoms showered upon Subhuti like rain. Yes, it happens. It is not a metaphor, it is a fact, so don't take this story metaphorically. It is literally true, because the whole of existence feels happy, blissful, ecstatic, when even one individual soul achieves the ultimate. We are part of the whole, and the whole is not indifferent to you. How can a mother be indifferent to a child? When the child grows, the mother also grows with him. The whole is your mother. The whole is not indifferent to you. Let this truth penetrate as deeply as possible in your heart. Because even this awareness that the whole feels happy with you will change you. Then you are not alienated. Then you are not a foreigner here. Blossoms shower, and then they go on showering. They never stop. This is one of the basic facts. Without it, there is no possibility of trust. Without it, there is no possibility of your ever reaching the truth. Unless the whole helps, there is no possibility for you to reach. Ordinarily, our mind thinks just the opposite. We think of the whole as the enemy, not as the friends, never as the mother. The whole supports you. Even when you fight, the whole supports you. Even when you fight and you are wrong, the whole supports you. This is a second truth to be understood well. If you don't understand, it will be difficult for you to proceed further. Even if you fight with the whole supports you. The sun is a god for Hindus and Buddhists. The sky is a god. Every tree has its own god, deity. The air is God, the earth is God. Everything has a heart. When you attain, everything celebrates. Then the sun shines in a different way. To those who are ignorant, everything remains the same. The sun shines in the old way because the change of quality is very subtle and only one who is empty can feel it. When one is totally empty, the quality of the sun immediately changes. It has a welcoming poetry about it. Its warmth is not only warmth, it has become a love. It is said that whenever Buddha passes through a forest, trees would start blossoming even when it was not the season for them. It has to be so. Man can err in recognizing Buddha, but how can trees err? Man has a mind and the mind may miss, but how can the trees miss? Now try to understand this parable, one of the best. Subhuti was one of the Buddha's disciples. Buddha had thousands of disciples. Subhuti was one of them. Really, nobody knows much about Subhuti. This is the only story about him. There were great disciples, famous scholars. They had big kingdoms, and when they left them and renounced and became disciples of Buddha, they had a name around them, but flowers didn't shower on them. Flowers chose this Subhuti, who was just one of the disciples. Only then do flowers shower. Otherwise, you also can become special around the Buddha. And you can miss. You can feel egoistic about being near a Buddha too. Sariputta came to Buddha. When he came, it was with 500 disciples of his own. He was a master, knowing nothing, and still feeling that he knew because he was a great scholar. He knew all the scriptures. He was born a Brahmin and a very talented one, a genius. From his very childhood, he was known for his great memory. Only once he had to read the scripture and it was already memorized. He was known all over the country. When he came to Buddha, he was somebody. That somebodyness became the barrier. These gods seem to be very irrational. They have chosen a disciple, Subhuti, who was just one of the crowds. The gods seem to be crazy. They should have chosen Sariputta, but they have not chosen him. They have not chosen Ananda. Remember, only nobodies are chosen. Because if you are somebody in this world, you are nobody in the other world. If here you are a nobody, you become somebody in the other world. Values differ. Here, gross things are valued. There, subtle things are valued. And the most subtle, the subtlest, is not to be. Subhuti lived in the crowd, and when this news came that flowers were showering on Subhuti, everybody wondered, who is this Subhuti? We never heard about him. Has it happened by some accident? Try to understand it well. When you are near a great master, be a nobody. Gods are crazy. They will choose you only when you are not. And if you try to be, the more you succeed in being somebody, the more you will miss. This is what we are doing in the world, and this we start doing around the Buddha also. You carry for rich. Why? Because with riches you become somebody. You crave for prestige and power. Why? Because with power and prestige you are not ordinary. You crave for learning, scholarship, knowledge. Why? Because with knowledge you have something to be proud of. But gods will not choose you that way. They have their own way of choosing. If you are yourself beating your drum too much, there is no need for gods to shower flowers on you. It happened once that a very rich man died on the same day. A beggar in the town also died. The name of the beggar was Lazarus. The rich man went directly to hell and Lazarus directly to heaven. The rich man looked up and saw Lazarus sitting near God, and he cried, "It seems that something has gone wrong. I should be there and this beggar should be here." God laughed and he said, "Those who are last shall become the first, and those who are first shall become the last. You have enjoyed being first enough. Now let Lazarus enjoy a little." And the rich man was feeling very hot. Of course, in hell, you don't have any air conditioning yet. Burning hot. He was feeling very thirsty and there was no water. So he began and cried. So he again cried and said, "God, at least send Lazarus with a little water. I am feeling thirsty." And God said, "Lazarus was thirsty many times, nearly dying at your door, and you never gave him anything. He was dying hungry at your door, and there was a feast every day. And many were invited, but he was always chased away from the door by your servants, because guests were coming. Powerful guests, politicians, diplomats, rich men, and a beggar standing there would look awkward. Your servant chased him away, and he was hungry, and the people who were invited were not hungry. You never looked at Lazarus. Now it is impossible." And it is said Lazarus left. This became a deep story for many Christian mystics to ponder over. It became just like a Zen koan. And in monastery, Christian mystics have been asking again and again why Lazarus left. He left at the absurdity of things. He never knew that a nobody like Lazarus, a leper, a beggar, would ever enter heaven. He could never believe that this had happened, and he could not believe the other thing either. The rich man, the richest in the town, should go to hell. He left. And Lazarus still laughs, and he will laugh when you die also. If you are a somebody, he will laugh, because you will be thrown out. If you are nobody, just ordinary, he will laugh because you will be received. In this world, because egos exist, all valuations belong to the ego. In the other world, the other dimension, valuation belongs to egolessness. Hence, Buddha's emphasis on no selfness, anatta. He said, "Don't even believe I am a soul, because that too can become a subtle ego. Don't say, Aham Brahmi, I am Brahma, I am the ultimate self. Don't say even that, because that I is very tricky. It can deceive you. It has deceived you for many, many lives. It can go on deceiving you. Simply say, I am not, and remain in that notness. Remain in that nothingness. Become empty of the self. One has to get rid of the self. Once the self is thrown away, nothing is lacking. You start overflowing and blossoms start falling on you." Subhuti was one of the Buddha's disciples. Remember, one of. He was able to understand the potency of emptiness. He was just one of many That's why he was able to understand the potency of emptiness. Nobody talked about him, nobody knew about him. He walked with, he followed Buddha on many paths in his travels. Nobody knew that he was also there. He knew the potency of emptiness. What is the meaning of it? Because the more he became a non-entity, the more he felt that Buddha was coming closer to him. He was able to understand the potency of emptiness, the viewpoint that nothing exists except in its relationship of subjectivity and objectivity. This is one of the deepest meditations Buddha discovered. He says everything exists in relation, in its relativity. It is not an absolute, substantial thing. For example, you are poor, I am rich. It is a substantial thing or just a relationship. I may be poor in relation to somebody else, and you may be rich in relation to somebody else. Even a beggar can be rich in relation to another beggar. There are rich beggars and poor beggars. A rich man in comparison to a richer man is a poor man. You are poor. Is your poverty existential or just a relationship? It is a relative phenomenon. If there is nobody to be related to, which will you be, a poor man or a rich man? Think. Suddenly the whole of humanity disappears, and you are left alone on the earth. Which will you be, poor or rich? You will be simply you, not rich nor poor. And you are alone. Remember, the society exists only outside you. Deep within you are alone. Close your eyes and see whether you are beautiful or ugly. Both the concepts disappear. Inside there is no beauty, no ugliness. Close your eyes and contemplate who are you. Respected, not respected. Moral, immoral, young, old, black, white. A master or a slave. Who are you? Close your eyes and in your aloneness, every concept drops. You cannot be anything. Then emptiness arises. All concepts nullified. Only your existence remains. This is one of the deepest meditation Buddha discovered. To be nobody. And this as not to be forced. And truth is absolute. It is not relative. Truth is not relative. It does not depend on anything. It is simply there. So find out the truth within you and don't bother about relationships. In a mood of sublime emptiness, flowers began to fall around him. He looked around. What is happening? We are praising you for your discourse on emptiness. The gods whispered to him. He couldn't believe it. He was never expecting it. He couldn't believe that he was worthy, or he was capable, or he had grown. We are praising you for your discourse on emptiness. The gods whispered to him. But I have not spoken of emptiness, said Subhuti. I have not spoken anything. You have not spoken of emptiness. We have not heard emptiness, responded the gods. This is true emptiness, and blossoms showered upon Subhuti like rain. Try to understand, they said. We are praising you for your discourse on emptiness. And he was not talking to anybody. He was not talking to himself because he was empty. He was not talking at all. He was simply there. And the gods said they have came to praise him for his discourse on emptiness. So he was more surprised and he said, "What? I have not done anything." They said, "You have not spoken and we have not heard. This is true emptiness." Nothing can be said about emptiness. Nobody has ever said anything about emptiness. You can just be empty, and that is the discourse. Being is the discourse. Emptiness can never become an object of thought. Thoughtlessness is its nature. So the God said, "You have not said anything, and we have not heard anything." That is the beauty of it. That's why we are praising you. Rarely does it happen that somebody is simply empty. This is true emptiness. And he was not even aware that it was emptiness, because if you are aware, something foreign has entered into it. You are divided, you are split. When one is really empty, there is nothing other than emptiness. Not even the awareness of emptiness. Not even the witness is there. One is perfectly alert, one is not asleep. But the witness is not there. It goes beyond witnessing because whenever you witness something, there is a slight tension inside, a subtle thought. And then emptiness is something else and you are something else. You witness it, you are not empty. The emptiness is again just a thought in the mind. People come to me and say, "I have experienced one moment of emptiness." And I tell them, if you have experienced it, then forget about it, because who will experience it? The experiencer is enough. Enough of a barrier. Who will experience it? Emptiness cannot be experienced. It is not an experience because the experiencer is not there. The experiencer and the experience have become one. It is an experiencing. Allow me to coin this word. It is an experiencing. It is a process, undivided. Both the poles have disappeared. Both the banks have disappeared, and only the river exists. You cannot say "I experienced" because you were not there. How can you experience it? And once you enter it, you cannot make it a past experience. You cannot say "I experienced," for then it becomes a past memory. No, emptiness can never become a memory because emptiness can never leave a trace. It cannot leave any footprints. How can emptiness become a past memory? How can you say "I experienced"? It is always in the now. It is experiencing. It is neither past nor future. It is always an ongoing process. Once you enter, you have encountered. You cannot even say "I experienced." That's why Subhuti was not even aware of what was happening. He was not there. Any distinction between him and the universe was not there. No distinction. Our boundaries dissolved. The universe started melting in him. He melted into the universe, merging, melting oneness. And the gods said, "This is true emptiness." And blossoms showered upon Subhuti like rain. This last line has to be understood very carefully because when somebody says that you are empty, immediately the ego can come back because you will become aware and you will feel something has been achieved. Suddenly the gods will make you aware that you are empty. But Subhuti was rare, extraordinary person. Even though the gods shouted around him, whispered in his ears, and the flowers were showering on him like rain, he didn't bother. He simply kept silent. They said, "You have spoken, you have given a discourse." He listened without coming back. They said, "You have not spoken, we have not heard. This is true emptiness." There was no ego saying, "The true happiness happened to me." The emptiness was so beautiful that now nothing could be more beautiful than that. He simply remained in his sublime emptiness. That's why blossoms showered upon Subhuti as rain. Now they were not falling a few here and a few there. Now they were showering like rain. This is the only story about Subhuti. Nothing is said about him anymore. Nowhere is he mentioned again. But I tell you, the flowers are still showering. Subhuti is no longer under any tree. Because when one becomes really totally empty, one dissolves into the universe. But the universe still celebrates it. The flowers go on showering, but you will be able to know them only when they shower for you. When God knocks at your door, only then you know that God is. I talk about Subhuti because this happened to me. And this is not a metaphor. It is literal. I have read about Subhuti before, but I thought it is a metaphor, beautiful, poetic. I had never even a slight notion that this happens actually. I never thought that this was a realistic phenomenon, a real thing that happens. But now I tell you it happens. It happened to me. It can happen to you. But a slime emptiness is needed. And never be confused. Don't never think that your negative emptiness can ever become sublime. Your negative emptiness is like darkness. Sublime emptiness is like light. It is like a rising sun. Negative emptiness is like death. Sublime emptiness is like life, eternal life. Allow that mood to penetrate you deeper and deeper. Go and sit under trees. Just sit. Everything stops. When you stop, everything stops. Time will not be moving as if suddenly the world has come to a peak and there is no movement. But don't bring in the idea, "Now I am empty." Otherwise you will miss. And even if God starts showering flowers on you, don't pay attention. And now you know the story. Don't even ask why. Subhuti had to ask. You need not. And even if they whisper by themselves, we have heard true emptiness and the discourse on it. Don't bother. And the flowers will shower like rain on you too.